One of aortic stenosis, other of mitral regurgitation. Each one will be dealt with for half an hour approximately. And I'm told that there are two presenters from Baptist Hospital. So the first present may start presenting at 8:30 sharp.
Yes, sir.
Who is the first presenter? What's the name?
Dr. Pooja, sir. I'll be presenting mitral regurgitation.
Super, that's great. Good evening, everybody. We are starting the case discussion now. Dr. Pooja Rao will be presenting a case of mitral regurgitation for non-cardiac surgery. So, Dr. Pooja, please start the presentation.
Yes, sir.
After the diagnosis, please stop there. Do you have investigations as well?
No, sir, I've not added.
That's fine. So, after the provisional diagnosis, I will start to ask you some questions and then we'll proceed. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. I'm starting my case presentation, sir.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Patient by name Kalpana, aged 44-year-old, domestic held by occupation, residing in KG Halli, presented with complaints of swelling in the right groin for the last 1 year and breathlessness, tiredness for the last 2 months. History of presenting illness. Patient apparently normal 1 year ago when she noticed swelling in the right groin, which becomes prominent on coughing. Size increased gradually over 1 year, not associated with pain and vomiting. She also complains of breathlessness, NYHA grade 2, gradually progressive over 2 months. Breathlessness initially on climbing 2 flights of stairs, now progressed to 1 flight of stairs, aggravated on strenuous work. Complaints of tiredness for the last 2 months, gradually progressive. No history of breathlessness on lying supine at night. No history of chest pain, chest tightness, swelling of lower limbs, decreased urine output. No history of awareness of her own heartbeat, giddiness, bluish discoloration of lips and nails. No history of cough with expectoration, blood in sputum. No history of increased bleeding during menstrual cycle. Past history, history of rheumatic fever at the age of 7 years. No history of tuberculosis, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, seizures, and bronchial asthma. No similar complaints in the family. Personal history, diet mix, sleep sound, bowel and bladder habits regular, no other habits. Treatment history, penicillin injection till the age of 21 years. General physical examination, patient moderately built and nourished, conscious, cooperative, and well oriented to time, place, and person. Height 150 centimeter, weight 52 kg. Vitals, her pulse rate 96 beats per minute regular, of normal volume and character. All peripheral pulses well felt. Blood pressure 130 by 80 millimeter mercury, measured in right arm in sitting position. Respiratory rate 18 cycles per minute. Saturation at room air 96%. JVP normal. Afebrile, no pallor, icterus, clubbing, cyanosis, edema. Airway examination, mouth opening more than 3 finger breadth. Malampati grade 2, no loose teeth or dentures. Temporomandibular joint movement and neck movement normal. Thyromental distance more than 6.5 centimeters. Spine well felt. On systemic examination, cardiovascular system on inspection, precordium appears normal. Apical impulse is visible in the fifth left intercostal space, 1 centimeter lateral to the midclavicular line. No pulsation, scars, dilated veins, no parasternal heave. On palpation, inspectory findings are confirmed. Apical impulse felt in the left fifth intercostal space, 1 centimeter lateral to the midclavicular line. Hyperdynamic apical impulse. On auscultation, S1 is not appreciated. Widely split S2. Pansystolic murmur heard at apex. High pitched. Increased intensity on hand grip, radiating to axilla. Respiratory system, bilateral air entry equal, normal vesicular breath sounds heard in all lung fields. Per abdomen examination, swelling noted in the right inguinal region, approximately 4 into 5 centimeter. Size increased on coughing, easily reducible. Abdomen soft, bowel sounds heard. Central nervous system examination within normal limits. Summary, 44-year-old female with swelling over the right inguinal region, moderately built and nourished, with history of breathlessness and tiredness for the last 2 months. History of rheumatic fever in childhood. On examination, she has low volume pulse, apical impulse shifted laterally, and pansystolic murmur heard at apex with radiation to axilla, and a 4 to 5 centimeter right inguinal swelling, which is easily reducible. My provisional diagnosis is right inguinal hernia with no features of obstruction, with mitral regurgitation without signs of congestive heart failure, posted for mesh plasty.
Okay, you told me that this 44-year-old lady had a groin swelling and breathlessness, which you think is because of rheumatic mitral regurgitation. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And she has this diagnosis of inguinal swelling is inguinal hernia.
Yes, sir.
So to begin with, you mentioned about NYHA. What do you mean by NYHA?
It's a New York Heart Association grading, 4 grades, which is applicable for features, chest pain, that's angina, breathlessness, palpitations, and fatigability.
Yeah.
So the 4 grades are NYHA grade 1 is where the patient does not have any of these symptoms. Grade 2 is at ordinary physical activity, patient has these symptoms. Grade 3 is less than ordinary physical activity. And grade 4 is at rest, sir.
You also mentioned that there was no paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea. Did you mention that?
I mentioned as she does not have breathlessness at night on lying supine.
So why did you mention that? What is the significance? What you did is right, but I want to know what is the background for you to mention that.
Sir, to rule out orthopnea and PND, sir.
What is PND?
Paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea.
What do you mean by PND, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea?
When the patient goes to sleep at night in supine position, after 2 hours, he feels breathless and air hunger. So he immediately gets up and goes towards the window for fresh air.
Yeah, that's right. What is the reason for that?
When the patient sleeps at night, there is loss of there's decrease in the sympathetic tone, and also there is increased venous return to the right side of the heart. So pulmonary congestion can be there. So that is why patients wake up with breathlessness. Sir.
Okay, that is correct. And what is orthopnea?
Orthopnea is patient wakes up from supine position immediately when he goes to sleep at night.
Does it happen only during sleep or it can happen otherwise also? Orthopnea?
Otherwise also, sir.
It can happen otherwise also. Patient, when he lies down, he or she lies down, there is increased venous return from the lower limbs as a result of loss of gravitational effects on the lower limb circulation, and then there is pulmonary congestion and patient cannot lie down flat.
Yes, sir.
Patient is more comfortable sitting up rather than flat.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you mentioned about rheumatic fever. What is a rheumatic fever?
Rheumatic fever is usually seen in childhood where patients usually have streptococcal pharyngitis, which later sequelae patients after a few years they develop carditis, cardiac features.
Can you define rheumatic fever? Rheumatic fever can be defined as anybody else can define rheumatic fever? It's a non-suppurative inflammatory disease as a result of autoimmune process due to the infection by group A beta hemolytic streptococci.
Okay, sir.
This group A beta hemolytic streptococcus is the causative agent, and the body develops antibodies against this one, and which react with various tissues, leading to the inflammation of the joints and
Okay,
the
sir.
heart, basically. What are the major criteria and minor criteria? How do we diagnose rheumatic fever?
Based on Duckett-Jones criteria, sir, for diagnosis, there should be either two major or one major and two minor criteria.
What are they?
Major criteria is carditis, Sydenham's chorea, subcutaneous nodules, erythema marginatum, and arthritis. Minor criteria is past history of rheumatic heart disease, fever, then arthralgia, lab values, raised DSR, the CRP, leukocytosis.
Yeah.
And
Past history of rheumatic heart disease is not there as minor criteria.
okay, sir. And prolonged PR interval on ECG.
Prolonged interval, tachycardia, yes, all those things are minor criteria. Now coming to the physical examination, you said the heart rate was about 88, isn't it?
Yes, 96, yes, sir.
96, and it was irregular.
Regular, sir.
It was regular, and both both the radials were felt and they were regular.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you said there was a systolic murmur.
Yes, sir.
Radiating to the axilla.
Yes, sir.
Just in case this patient did not give a history of rheumatic fever. Rheumatic fever history may not be present in all patients who have rheumatic heart disease.
Okay, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All patients will not give rheumatic fever. Sometimes they may get sore throat, and with
Yes.
some treatment it subsides, and they may not think that it is a streptococcal infection. So not all people, they may not remember also. So not all patients with rheumatic heart disease give a history of rheumatic fever. Suppose this patient did not have a history of rheumatic fever and the history was similar. There was breathlessness, grade 2 dyspnea was there. So what could be differential diagnosis? But there is a murmur, systolic murmur on the precordium.
Differential diagnosis for systolic murmur, sir.
Differential diagnosis of systolic murmur in the precordium.
Aortic stenosis, mitral regurgitation, tricuspid regurgitation, VSD.
VSD, very good.
Then
functional murmurs due to anemia and high flow situations also can cause murmurs, but you have to tell me this is mitral regurgitation, not anything else. On what facts can you base that statement?
So one is that it is pansystolic. From examination point of view, the pulse was low volume.
No, just go for the murmur. You had a pansystolic murmur.
Systolic murmur.
You think it is because of mitral regurgitation?
Yes, sir.
So if I say no, it's not mitral regurgitation, it's aortic stenosis, or I say tricuspid regurgitation, or is it a VSD which is manifesting in adulthood? How do you safeguard your statement?
Aortic stenosis is heard at the apex, and also it is well heard in the aortic area, sir.
It is well heard in the aortic area. That is one important point. What else?
And radiation.
Very good.
Radiation to the
carotid. Radiates to?
Carotid, sir.
Radiates to carotid. That's correct. So you can say that it cannot be aortic stenosis because it's not, this one is not written carotids and it's mostly heard in the mitral area.
Yes,
How
sir.
about tricuspid regurgitation?
Maneuver, sir, that increases the venous return to the right heart.
Okay. Tricuspid regurgitation also produces a systolic murmur,
Yes, sir.
but we think this is mitral regurgitation. Why? Because the tricuspid, you have to listen to the murmur in both phases of respiration.
Okay, sir.
If it is better heard in expiration, it will be left-sided. If it is better heard during inspiration, it is right-sided.
Okay, sir.
So that differentiation can be given, and TR murmur will not radiate to the back, axilla.
Okay, sir.
That is another point. How about
Oh.
VSD? VSD also will cause a pansystolic murmur, but it will not radiate to the
Axilla, sir.
axilla. And history-wise, there may be history of repeated chest infections.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now come to the pathophysiology.
Yes, sir.
Pathophysiology of mitral regurgitation. What's the pathophysiology?
In mitral regurgitation, there are two pathways where the blood can flow. One is the forward flow, and the other one is the regurgitant flow that is back to the left atrium. So in long-standing mitral regurgitation, because of the increased regurgitant fraction, the left atrium tries to compensate, sir. So there will be increase in the left atrial size. And also, as the severity increases, the forward flow decreases. Because of that, the patient has symptoms of fatigability, breathlessness, and chest pain. And when there is decompensation, when the left atrium is unable to compensate anymore, there is increased back pressure to the pulmonary veins that results in pulmonary congestion. And ultimately, the right heart also gets involved. There will be right ventricular failure.
Yeah, approximately you're right. The symptomatology that occurs with mitral regurgitation to some extent will depend upon not only upon the grade of mitral regurgitation but also the compliance of the left atrium.
Yes, sir.
Left atrium compliance. If it is acute MR, left atrium is not prepared to take the load, so the patient will suddenly develop pulmonary edema.
Yes, sir.
Or acute breathlessness if there's acute MR. But in chronic MR, there's a gradual increase in left atrial pressure.
Yes, sir.
Which will be transmitted to the pulmonary venous, pulmonary capillary, and pulmonary arterial system, leading to pulmonary hypertension.
Yes, sir.
Subsequently, right ventricular dilatation, right ventricular hypertrophy, and tricuspid regurgitation, and congestive heart failure because of right atrial increase in the right atrial pressure. Manifested as right-sided failure.
Yes, sir.
Now, what sort of hypertrophy do these patients have? Left ventricular hypertrophy.
Eccentric hypertrophy,
It will
sir.
be eccentric hypertrophy. And what are the causes for mitral regurgitation?
Rheumatic fever, infective.
In our country, in our subcontinent, rheumatic fever is the most common cause for mitral regurgitation.
Yes,
what is
sir.
the second most common cause?
Infective endocarditis, sir.
Second most common cause is ischemic heart disease. Ischemic heart is very rampant, and ischemia of the papillary muscles, which will lead to mitral regurgitation. Ischemia or infarction, whatever it may be. Ischemic heart disease is second commonest cause for mitral regurgitation. Other causes are?
Other causes are there can be Functional mitral regurgitation, sir, because of annular dilatation and dilated cardiomyopathy.
Very good.
Other infective cause, infective endocarditis. Then
Okay.
congenital causes Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, mucopolysaccharidosis. Then
Before that, you have to say about prolapse of the mitral
mitral
leaflets as a result of either congenital prolapse or connective tissue disorders.
Yes, sir.
Where there is prolapse, papillary muscle dysfunction that we already said in ischemic heart disease, rupture of the chordae that
Yes.
again occurs in ischemic heart disease, acute MI. These are all the causes for mitral regurgitation. First, rheumatic fever, ischemic heart disease, then mitral valve prolapse and connective tissue disorders, and
Yes.
then LV dilatation as a result of cardiomyopathy and causing annular increase in the mitral annular size and failure of coaptation of the leaflets leading to MR. So what are the mechanisms of MR? This is the etiology.
Yes, sir.
This is the cause for MR, but what are the mechanisms?
Sir, one mechanism can be because of the annular dilatation, but
Very
the
good.
are
Very good.
normal.
First, there are three mechanisms. First is normal leaflet motion. Leaflet motion is normal, but there is annular dilatation.
Yes, sir.
That is first mechanism. Second mechanism is
where the leaflets are involved. Either there can be increased mobility of the leaflets, or because of calcification, there can be decreased, restricted mobility of.
very good, very good. Basically, you have to know three mechanisms. There are five mechanisms, but we don't have to know all the three mechanisms. If you know, that is more than enough. One is excessive leaflet motion. Sorry, first is normal leaflet motion. Second is excessive leaflet motion. Third is restricted motion of the
Yes.
leaflet. Can you repeat it? Three mechanisms.
Normal leaflet motion, accelerated leaflet motion, and
No, excessive.
excessive.
It is called excessive.
Excessive and restricted leaflet motions.
So these are the three major mechanisms. Carpentier has proposed this mechanism, and it is accepted worldwide that there are three mechanisms for mitral regurgitation. And I will repeat again. First mechanism is normal leaflet motion. The usual cause is annular dilatation, but other cause also mentioned like perforation of the leaflet, where the leaflet motion is normal but leaf is perforated, or cleft in the mitral leaflet, where the mitral leaflet is normal moving, but there's a cleft. These are the causes for the mechanism one. Mechanism two is excessive motion of the leaflet. Most common example is prolapsed mitral valve. It's moving excessively, and because it's excessively moving, the coaptation has failed.
Okay,
And the
sir.
third one is restricted movement, where you get for example, rheumatic fever, where the leaflets are thickened and sometimes calcified and fused, and the leaflets are not able to move, so the regurgitation will occur. Okay.
Okay,
And
sir.
also here you also have restricted motion of the leaflet because of ischemic heart disease. This is also class 3 type of mechanism.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we will go on to the what are the X-ray findings in this case. I have only 8 minutes. We have to finish investigations and bit of management. X-ray, what do you do? X-ray, ECG, and echo. You tell me what are the findings.
In ECG, rhythm, either it can be normal sinus rhythm, or patient can have AFs, atrial fibrillation, sir.
Very good.
And P wave, there can be bifid P wave, P mitral, where the second right half of the P wave is enlarged more than 200 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
And there
What's the
can
reason
be
for that?
because of left atrial enlargement.
Very good.
Then there can be a right ventricular hypertrophy. There is prominent R wave in V1 and V2. And if the patient has ischemia, there can be ischemic signs, or SCT changes can be there.
Yes.
And right axis deviation.
Yeah.
On chest X-ray, either in the initial stages, if it's chronic compensated, then the chest X-ray can be normal. Otherwise, there can be double density signs seen on the chest X-ray because of left atrial enlargement. There can be increased bronchovascular markings, increased prominence of the upper lobe vein, antler sign can be seen. And
what are the signs of left atrial enlargement on the X-ray? One you said about double density. What else can be seen? Can you hear me?
So yes, sir, I can hear you, sir.
What are the signs of left atrial enlargement on the X-ray? One is shadow in shadow, that is double density.
Forward push of the left main bronchus, sir.
Yeah, the angle of division of carina is increased.
Yes, sir.
That is second. Third one is you can demonstrate the narrowing of the esophagus if you do a barium swallow. This we don't do barium swallows nowadays, but about 20 years back it was being done. The enlarged left atrium will compress on the esophagus and will cause sometimes it's called a rat tail deformity, but the compression of the esophagus can be visualized by barium swallow. The examiners, if they are from the older generation, they may ask you this one. So that is about the X-ray. ECG, I told you. Echo, what are the findings in echo?
On 2D echo, left atrial size if it's normal or dilated, left ventricular size if to look for hypertrophy, then ejection fraction, sir. And we also look for the regurgitant volume and the effective regurgitant orifice area. And if there is any right ventricular dysfunction.
Very good. What is the ejection fraction in these cases? Is what do you mean by ejection fraction?
Ejection fraction is stroke volume by end diastolic volume, sir.
It is LV end diastolic volume minus LV.
Yes, sir.
Systolic volume divided by
end diastolic
volume. Normal values?
Normal values is 50 to 60%, sir.
Very good. In these patients, the ejection fraction may be overestimated.
Okay, sir.
Please remember that if the ejection in MR, if it is less than 60, it means that it's impaired LV.
Okay, sir.
Just keep this in mind. In MR, the ejection fraction measured by the echocardiography is overestimating the LV function.
Okay, sir.
Come to the goals of management. What are the goals of management?
Goals of management is faster, forward, fuller, sir. The grid is heart rate. I will maintain higher normal heart rate, rhythm, normal sinus rhythm. Preload, I will maintain the preload. Afterload, I will try to reduce the SVR so that forward stroke volume. Maintain the myocardial contractility and avoid factors which worsen pulmonary hypertension like hypoxia, hypercarbia, acidosis, and hyperthermia.
Correct. All that is correct. Then what is the choice of anesthetic in this case? Inguinal hernia, which is reducible, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's elective surgery.
Yes,
so,
sir.
What is the technique of choice for you?
Sir, I will go with the regional anesthesia.
Very good. Which regional?
If it is mild to moderate, I will go for subarachnoid block, sir.
Yeah, subarachnoid.
With an invasive arterial monitoring.
Very good, very good. Suppose the patient refuses spinal, you have to give GA.
Okay, sir.
So how do you do the anesthetic induction in these cases? Suppose the patient refuses, no, I don't want to have regional. I had a lot of pain at the back. The previous surgery when they gave me spinal, I don't want any more spinal if she says.
Okay. If GA given, sir.
And she wants GA for that. She wants to get rid of the swelling and also she wants GA.
Okay, sir. Then I will explain after taking informed consent, explaining the risk and keeping a post-op ICU standby. I will prepare the OT by checking the machine, my anesthesia induction agents, emergency drugs, suction apparatus, and
No, just tell me the technique of anesthesia.
for induction, I will induction agent of choice. I will use etomidate in the dose of 0.3 mg per kg
You're going
IV.
to go etomidate.
Yes, sir.
Then
Fentanyl 2 mics per kg, sir.
relaxant
And
of choice.
my relaxant of choice will be cisatracurium.
Why do you choose cisatracurium?
To avoid histamine release.
Very good. I accept that. But if the surgery was more than 1 hour duration, 1.5 to 2 hours duration, you may choose pancuronium because slight tachycardia is beneficial in these cases. But cisatracurium is perfect in this case.
Okay,
absolutely no problem. Before I close the case discussion with you, I just want to ask you 2 questions. How do you go grade mitral regurgitation?
Mitral regurgitation, mild, moderate, severe, sir.
Yes.
Based on the left atrial size. In mild, it is normal. In moderate and severe, moderate, it can be either normal or dilated. Severe, it is dilated. And left ventricular size is normal and mild. It is dilated in moderate and severe.
You have a textbook in front of you?
No, sir.
That's good. I thought the way
Then
you replying.
the regurgitant volume, the regurgitant fraction, if it is less than, in mild, it is less than 25%. In moderate, it is 25 to 40%. And in severe, it is more than 40%, sir. And the other one is the volume as such of the blood. In severe, it is less than 30 ml. In moderate, it is 30 to 60 ml. And in severe, it is more than 60 ml.
Very good. That's good. But also we have to make a mention of when you do the color Doppler jet area, we look at the jet area.
Okay,
this
sir.
is semi-quantitative and it's not exactly 100% accurate in the sense that that I don't think you need to go into jet area.
Okay, sir.
In color Doppler, when you look at the jet, you measure the jet area. If it is more than 7 square centimeters,
okay,
it
sir.
is severe jet area. And we
Okay.
also have what is called as vena contracta, that's the width of the narrowest portion of the jet.
Okay, sir.
If it is greater than 7 millimeters,
okay, sir.
it is called severe.
Okay, sir.
And there's one more parameter. If you remember, it's okay, but otherwise not necessary. Pulmonary venous flow profile.
Sorry?
If there is systolic reversal, it
Okay.
again mounts to be severe. So you remember jet area and vena contracta.
Okay, sir.
The last question is, how do you, when will you tell the patient? No, first you get the heart surgery sorted out. After that, you can do this.
If it is severe mitral regurgitation.
Yeah, if it is severe, you have to go through the algorithm for non-cardiac surgery in cardiac patient. This is not an emergency procedure, it's elective. Yes, and the patient is having severe MR with atrial fibrillation. So patient should be referred to the cardiologist. And then if the MR is not so severe, it's only mild to moderate, then you have to go through the risk scoring. What are the RCRI? You know RCRI?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Revised cardiac risk index, sir, where there are 6 things that we have to look into. One is if the patient has ischemic heart disease. The other one is features of congestive heart failure. The other one is serum creatinine more than 1.2 mg per deciliter. If there's
2 milligram, that is 2 milligram, not 1.2.
Okay, sorry, 2 milligram.
2 milligram, insulin dependent diabetes.
Diabetes and the history of CVA, sir, stroke.
severe and suprainguinal intracavitary surgery.
Major surgery. Yes.
So if the risk is more than 1, you have to look into the MET's functional capacity.
Yes,
And
sir.
if the METs are less than 4, you have to do further investigation. So you have to quickly go through the algorithm for approach to a non-cardiac surgery in a cardiac patient. Now we'll go on to, thank you for that. You have done quite well. And
Thank you.
we'll go to the next case.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Next case, who is presenting?
Hello.
Yes. Please present the next case. Can you present the case?
Yes, sir. 66-year-old female patient came with complaints of shortness of breath from 4 months, syncope from 2 months. History of present illness. Patient was apparently well 6 months back. Complaints of shortness of breath from 4 months, gradually progressive. Initially used to walk comfortably and can climb 2 floors of stairs. Now patient feels breathless while going to restroom also and relieved by taking rest. There is no breathing difficulty in the night on lying down, and the breathlessness is not associated with any cough, hemoptysis, seasonal variation. No history of chest pain and palpitations. No history of swelling of the legs, decreased urine output, and abdominal distension. And she has syncope from 2 months. She had 2 episodes in the past 2 months. Each episode was followed by transient loss of consciousness. There were no jerky movements, tongue bite, and weakness of the limbs. Coming to the past history, no history of fever in the childhood and no joint pains, nodules over the skin, and no skin rash. She is diabetic from 4 years and on OHAs, oral hypoglycemic agents. No history of hypertension, bronchial asthma, seizures, and tuberculosis. Family history also no similar complaints. Personal history mixed diet, bowel bladder habits normal. No smoking and drinking habits. Drug history not eligible to any medicines. General examination conscious, coherent, oriented, moderately built and nourished. Height 160 cm, weight 64 kg, BMI 27. She is afebrile, no icterus, pallor, cyanosis, pedal edema, clubbing pedal edema, and lymphadenopathy. Vitals, pulse rate is 66 beats per minute, regular, low volume. No radioradial delay, no radiofemoral delay. BP is 110-60 mm Hg in right arm in sitting position. Respiratory rate is 14 breaths per minute, abdominothoracic type. Temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. JVP is not raised. Airway examination, there is no loose teeth. Jaw movement and neck movement are normal. Mouth opening is 6 centimeters. Thyromental distance 6 centimeters and Mallampati grade 2. Spine examination appears normal and no deformity. Systemic examination, inspection, no precordial bulge, no visible pulsations and no deformities of the chest. Apical impulse seen at left 5th intercostal space, medial to mid-clavicular line. Palpation, apical impulse position confirmed. There are no parasternal heave. Percussion not done, sir. Auscultation S1, S2 heard. And crescendo, decrescendo ejection systolic murmur heard in the aortic area with the diaphragm of the stethoscope and increasing with leaning forward with breath held in expiration, radiating to carotid artery both sides. Respiratory system bilateral air entry equal. Normal vesicular breath sounds heard in all lung fields. For abdomen soft, bowel sounds heard, sir. Central nervous system, higher mental functions normal, sensory motor examination normal. Summary, 66-year-old female patient with breathlessness from 4 months, syncope from 2 months, with low volume pulse, with positive signs of crescendo, decrescendo ejection systolic murmur, heard in aortic area with radiation to carotid artery, coming for elective total abdominal hysterectomy, with echo showing moderate aortic stenosis, with aortic valve area 1.4 centimeter square and gradient 30 mm Hg.
Okay, that's a short presentation of a patient who needs hysterectomy but has breathlessness, syncope, and there's no chest pain, isn't it?
No, sir.
So patient has syncope and breathlessness.
Yes, sir.
And the examination findings, you found a ejection systolic murmur and the low pulse. So you have diagnosed aortic stenosis. The same questions will be asked with regard to NYHA, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, orthopnea, ejection fraction, etc. Some of the common questions will be same for any cardiac patient.
Okay.
When you take up the examination. Now, what is the differential diagnosis of ejection systolic murmur in this case?
With respect to murmur, it can be pulmonary stenosis.
Very good. It can be pulmonary stenosis. How do you differentiate pulmonary stenosis with aortic stenosis?
One is the area, sir. Pulmonary
Area.
stenosis third in left side, and aortic stenosis on right side.
Yes. In the aortic area and pulmonary area, respectively.
Aortic area and pulmonary area. And
And
then
anything else?
pulmonary stenosis murmur will increase on expiration.
No. Right-sided will increase with inspiration. More
Yes.
important, yeah, that is usually right-sided murmurs increase with inspiration because the flow to the right side increases with inspiration in spontaneous breathing. The
Yes.
other important thing is radiation to the neck is absent in pulmonary stenosis.
Pulmonary. Yes. Hello.
Come to the causes of aortic stenosis. What are the causes?
Bicuspid valve, unicuspid. Main thing is bicuspid valve, sir. And second common cause is bicuspid valve. Most common cause is sclerosis of the aortic valve, age-related.
Okay.
Then rheumatic heart disease.
Rheumatic heart disease, very good.
Fabry's disease.
Yeah. These three, if you mention, that is more than enough for me because these are the most common causes. Degenerative senile aortic stenosis, which occurs after the age of 60-65.
Yes,
The
sir.
other one is bicuspid valve, which is actually congenital but manifests later in the life after 20-30 years.
Okay.
And the third one is in our country, aortic stenosis because of rheumatic heart disease,
Yes, sir.
usually associated with some degree of aortic regurgitation. Other causes are not common, so if you mention these three, that is enough for me.
Okay.
What is the pathophysiology?
Because of the stenosis, forward flow won't be there, sir.
Forward flow will be decreased.
Forward flow will be reduced. So there will be decreased cardiac
not
output.
it is not there because if it's not there, patient will not be surviving.
Yes.
The forward flow is decreased.
Forward flow is reduced, so there will be decreased cardiac output. So there will be hypotension and syncope. And left ventricle should pump against the high stenosis. So the left ventricular size will be increased. The myocardial mass will be increased.
Left ventricular size will be increased or thickness of the wall will be increased?
Thickness of the wall will be increased.
Yeah, there will be hypertrophy of the sarcomeres.
Left ventricle.
This is concentric or eccentric?
Concentric, sir.
This will be concentric hypertrophy of the left ventricle will take place.
Yes, sir. There will be
So
concentric.
that will increase the oxygen demand of the myocardium.
Myocardium. Yes, sir. And because of this and reduced left ventricular compliance, there will be increase in left ventricular end diastolic pressure.
Very good.
And left ventricular end diastolic pressure leads to again increase in pulmonary capillary pressure. Then patient will have dyspnea.
Very good. So what is this? Once the patient becomes breathless or has chest pain or syncope, what is the lifespan of this individual?
For if angina, 5 years, sir. Then for syncope, it is 3 years. And for dyspnea, it is 2 years, sir.
Yeah, this lifespan is about 2 to 5 years. So it's a sort of not exactly semi-emergency. It should be if the patient with aortic stenosis has symptoms because of aortic stenosis, it must be addressed fairly quickly because the lifespan will be limited.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you tell me about the grading of aortic stenosis. Before that, you tell me X-ray and ECG. After that, we'll go to GD.
ECG mainly because of the left ventricular concentric hypertrophy. There will be LVH, left ventricular hypertrophy.
Left ventricular hypertrophy will be there.
Yes, sir. In V5 and V6, the R wave will be more than 25 mm. And in V1 and V2, the depth of the S wave will be more than 20 mm. And
if you add up the S in V1 and R in V5, it will be more than 35.
Yes, sir. And there can be atrial fibrillation also.
More than that, these
Strain
there
pattern
will
will be
be
there.
strain
T-
pattern will
wave
be there.
inversion.
ST depression and T wave inversion may be present,
Yes, sir.
and there may be left axis deviation.
Deviation. Yes, sir. Left axis deviation.
Okay, go to the ECG, X-ray. X-ray, what do you see?
X-ray.
Will there
Mainly,
be cardiomegaly?
no, sir. If in the late stages, straightening of the
In a
left
typical
heart.
case of aortic stenosis, cardiomegaly may not be seen.
Yes, sir.
But in the later stages, when the patient actually lands with cardiac failure, then there may be cardiomegaly. Now come to the echo features and then grading of aortic stenosis.
Yes, sir. Mild, moderate, severe, sir. According to the
What is the
aortic,
normal aortic valve area?
2.5 to 4.5 centimeter square, sir. Aortic sclerosis is 1.5 to 2.5. Mild, moderate, severe. Severe is less than 1. Moderate is 1 to 1.5. More than 1.5 is mild, sir. More than 1.5. Then
Don't
aortic
talk about
valve.
aortic sclerosis, sir. Just say that. Because they
Sclerosis
will
is
ask you what is
1.5 to 6.
sclerosis and all. Don't talk about sclerosis. Just say that aortic stenosis grade 3 grades.
Mild,
Severe,
moderate.
mild, and severe, moderate, and mild. Severe is less than 1 square centimeters.
Yes. Severe
Moderate
is less
is
than
1 to
moderate is
1.5.
1.5.
1.5 to 2.5 is mild.
Yes, sir.
And
And
that is
gradient
one
across,
way to gradient. Yeah, gradient.
gradient across that severe is more than 40. 20 to 40 is moderate. Less than 20 is mild, sir.
Is this peak
And
gradient or mean gradient?
peak gradient, sir.
This is mean gradient.
Okay, sir.
This is mean gradient. Greater than 40, 20 to 40, less than 20. Indicate severe, moderate, and mild aortic stenosis respectively.
Okay, sir. Then flow across that Doppler jet, sir. If it is more than 4, severe.
That is
2.
peak velocity. Called
Peak
peak velocity greater than 4 meters per second.
Then 2 to 3 is moderate. Less than 2 is mild, sir.
If you tell this, that is more than enough. Then now we'll go on to the. Do you pre-medicate these patients?
Benzodiazepines can be given, sir, mainly to avoid tachycardia. Yes, sir.
This is abdominal hysterectomy. This is elective surgery, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
What's the reason for hysterectomy?
Abnormal uterine bleeding, sir.
Is it excessive and there is anemia in this patient?
No, sir. HB was around 10.4. AUB with
10.4 is normal for this lady. Is 10.4 grams normal in a lady?
mild anemic, sir. Less than 11 mild.
Anemic. What is the normal value of hemoglobin? Males and
Females,
females.
females 11 to 13, sir. Males 14 to 17.
Okay, patient's hemoglobin is 10. So when will you tell the patient and the surgeon that first the heart disease has to be tackled?
Heart has to be?
Tackled. I mean, heart disease should be addressed first.
Yes, sir. First, this aortic stenosis is associated with the coronary artery disease also, sir. Patient is not having any chest pain, but we should rule out coronary artery disease also, depending upon the patient effort
Can the
tolerance.
patient have chest pain without having coronary artery disease?
Yes, sir. This aortic stenosis patient.
Why they can have chest? You're right. Patient can have chest pain without coronary artery disease in aortic stenosis.
It is mainly because of the oxygen supply demand imbalance, sir.
Very good. It's because of the oxygen supply demand imbalance.
Yes,
What are
sir.
the reasons for imbalance?
One is decreased supply because of the enlarged myocardium causing compression of the coronary vessels, so supply will be less, and demand also will be more because of the hypertrophy of the myocardium, sir.
Yeah, the other reason why the supply is diminished is also increased LVEDP.
Yes, sir.
LVEDP is increased, so the coronary perfusion pressure will be decreased as a
Yes.
result of
Yes, sir.
the increased LVEDP, because the coronary perfusion pressure is difference between
Left ventricular, sorry, diastolic blood pressure minus
coronary perfusion pressure is
diastolic
a difference
DBP
between
minus DBP minus left ventricular end diastolic pressure, sir.
so end diastolic pressure is increased, so the coronary perfusion is diminished, and also there is evidence to show that the number of coronary artery branches or the capillaries per unit of myocardium is decreased in these patients. So that is as long as you say that the LVEDP is increased, so that causes a decreased coronary perfusion, that is enough. And also oxygen supply demand mismatch, because of the demand is increased because of the excessive muscle mass.
Yes, sir.
And the myocardium also is spending more time in systole when it is trying to generate stroke volume. If you take a cardiac cycle, the time spent in systole is increased as compared to diastole, and hence diastolic time is decreased in comparison to normal. And this also is one of the causes mentioned for ischemic symptoms. And also when the narrow valve blood is passing through that, the velocity is increased, and that may cause a generation of negative pressure at the level of the coronary sinus. This is venturi. So that is also one of the causes for ischemic change. So when there is venturi, the blood which is going to the coronaries may actually be sucked back into the aortic route.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you
Yes.
followed now what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Now we'll go on to the goals of management.
We should avoid tachycardia, sir, because
Very good.
tachycardia causes decreased left ventricular diastolic duration, and filling also will be reduced.
Correct.
So
Both
tachycardia should
bradycardia and tachycardia are not good for this patient. This should be considered as a fixed output states,
yes, sir.
fixed low output states.
And
So
bradycardia
the heart rate control is very important. Tachycardia is avoided. Bradycardia below 60 is also avoided.
yes, sir. Cardiac output will not be there if bradycardia is there. So avoid tachycardia and bradycardia with low normal heart rate of 60 to 70.
Okay.
Then avoid sudden decrease in SVR. Then-
Yes, very good. SVR should be maintained.
Yes, sir. SVR should be
SVR
maintained.
should be maintained.
Then maintaining contractility.
Yeah.
And these patients are because of the fixed cardiac output, they are dependent upon the preload. So preload should be maintained, sir.
Very good. And what is the role of atrial contraction in these patients?
In these patients, left atrial kick is important, sir, for the left ventricular filling. It contributes about 30% of the filling of the left ventricle. So if atrial fibrillation or
Normally it
tachycardia,
is 15%, 15 to 20%. In these patients, maybe as much as 30 to 40%. So the left atrial kick mechanism must be preserved at all costs.
yes, sir.
And if the patient develops ventricular fibrillation, it's very difficult to resuscitate them because the fixed stenosed orifice.
Yes.
What's the technique of anesthesia in these patients according to you? Abdominal hysterectomy with, we'll say, moderate aortic stenosis.
Yes,
Patient is bleeding, and hence the surgeon wants to do the hysterectomy first.
Yes, sir.
Rather than heart surgery.
Yes, sir. I will go ahead with general anesthesia, sir, with invasive arterial line and central line with
Yes.
ultrasound guided total transverse abdominis plain block.
Are you going to do the general anesthesia?
Yes, sir. General anesthesia sir. With endotracheal tube intubation with IPPV.
Achha, how many the transverse abdominis blocks you have given?
And
Have you given any?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Given. We have given.
How many? You have
Oh,
given or you have seen it being given?
No, sir. I have given. Sir. Given.
You have done, very good. So how many approximately you would have done?
Around 10, sir.
Oh, very good. Why do you want to give abdominal bag? GA is not sufficient, is it?
Yeah, for analgesia, sir.
Very good. You want to give good analgesia.
And post-op tachycardia also should be prevented because of
Correct.
pain and
Very
shivering.
good. That's good. So what is the induction technique?
Induction after arterial line and central line, I will induce with opioid, mainly fentanyl, sir, and a titrated dose of 1 to 2 mics per kg, and etomidate 0.3 mg per
How do
kg.
you
Then,
titrate fentanyl?
depending upon the hemodynamics, sir, avoiding hypertension and hypotension and bradycardia. First, I
No,
will go
anyway, you are
1 mic
giving
per cc, sir.
etomidate, no? Anyway, you are giving etomidate. There's no need to say titrated fentanyl.
Okay, sir.
We give 1 to 2 micrograms of fentanyl per kilo
Yes, sir.
and then administer etomidate.
Okay, sir.
Why do you want to choose etomidate?
It is a cardiostable
Very good.
induction
It is the-
agent.
Of all the intravenous induction agent, that is the most safest cardiovascular profile.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to paralyze this patient?
Yes, sir. Paralyzing agent with atracurium. Intubating dose is 0.5 mg per kg, sir. Then
Why do you
endotracheal.
want to use atracurium? It will cause histamine release.
Yes, sir. Cisatrac.
Yeah, go for cisatracurium, vecuronium or rocuronium.
Yes.
It also will, to some extent, see what is the heart rate before induction. Once you connect the monitors,
Yes, sir.
see the heart rate.
Yes, sir.
If it is 80 and above, go for vecuronium. If it is
Okay.
60, don't go for vecuronium. Go for cisatracurium, rocuronium.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is not full stomach, so you can give rocuronium or the intermediate acting of the steroidal neuromuscular blockers. What will you do if there is a patient develops? You want to do central line, huh?
Yes, sir.
You wanted central line. So when you're putting central line, patient develops SVT. What will you do?
SVT first carotid massage, sir.
SVT with hypotension. Pressure has fallen to 50.
Defibrillator also I will keep ready and
It is
defibrillation.
cardioversion. You have to cardiovert the patient. If
Sir,
there is
defibrillator with
not you use a defibrillator, but it's not called defibrillation. It is cardioversion.
yes, sir.
Or you can say synchronized defibrillation.
Cardio. Yes.
Why do you want to synchronize?
Mainly control the ventricular rates.
No, we want to do the synchronized shock, no?
Yes, sir.
DC shock. Synchronized DC shock. Why it has to be synchronized? What will happen if you give this not synchronized shock, that is defibrillation? Patient is having supraventricular tachycardia with hypotension.
Yes, sir.
What will happen if you give a shock which is not synchronized?
Patient can go for VF and VT.
Very good. Why it happens? VF can happen.
It is asynchronized.
What is that phenomenon called?
RNT phenomenon.
RNT phenomenon.
Yes.
Now you tell me What's your post-op management?
Post-op analgesia, mainly with paracetamol 1 gram TID dose.
See, for any case, post-op means you have to say 4 things first and then specific items. This is applicable to any case. If somebody asks you what is post-op management, first you have to say what are you going to monitor. I'll monitor the heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate, SpO2, and if arterial pressure is a direct arterial pressure. First is monitoring. Second is fluid. I'll give 1 to 2 ml per kg per hour of renal lactate. Then pain control.
Yes.
Then a patient will be kept in the ICU. Pain
Yes.
control, you already said about this.
Transverse abdominis plane.
Yeah, that one. And then the other thing you have to say, fourth thing is oxygen administration.
Yes.
Can you repeat what are the 4 things we should say for any case who is coming
Vital,
for?
pulse rate and
First
BP,
is
saturation,
monitoring. Next,
monitoring more vitals and fluids,
fluids,
pain management,
pain,
and ICU monitoring with oxygen administration.
Oxygen to maintain a saturation more than 95 or something like that.
Yes, sir.
And then go for specific issues.
Okay, sir.
Specific issues concerning that particular disease. Any major surgery, you have
Yes.
to do the monitoring, oxygen, pain control, fluid management, and then whatever is specific to that disease condition or the operation.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you so much. Well done. We'll see you on
Thank you.
Thursday. I don't know what case is there on that day. Please
Okay.
come prepared. Are there any questions from the audience? Any 1 or 2 quick questions? Anything is there? There's nothing in chat box, so we'll close the session now. Thank you very much. Both of you have done well. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.